1.7, multiply and divide real numbers. And again, real numbers here, we're talking about integers. And we have rules for the negative and positives when we're multiplying and dividing. And I've already mentioned those when we were talking about having two signs in front of a number. So that's the same thing as a -1 times a -1. It's a negative times a negative, which is going to give us a positive. So then if I had a plus times, well, a -2, that's the same thing as a +1 times a -2. So then a plus times a minus is going to equal a minus. A positive times a positive will also equal a positive. So if we have -2 times -1 times -3, 2 times 1 is 2 times 3 is going to give us 6. Then we have to figure out positive or negative. So when I look at those two negatives are positive, and then a positive and a negative would give me a negative. So if we had -2 times -1 times -3 times -4, 2 times 1, 2, 2 times 3 is 6, 6 times 4 would give us 24, but we'd have to figure out positive or negative. So let's look at it again. We'd have two negatives, that would be positive. Plus and a minus would be negative. Two negatives, we'd end up with a positive. So let's see if we can make this a little bit easier for ourselves. Come up with a little rule here. We've got 1, 2, 3 negatives. 3 negatives, that's an odd amount of negatives. And when we have an odd amount of negatives, it's going to equal a negative. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is an even amount of negatives. And in that case, we're going to end up with a positive answer. So if we have something like this, I can't write -1 643 times. But I know that 1 times 1 is 1 times 1. So I know that my answer is going to be 1. I just have to decide if it's negative or positive. Well, this is an odd number. And if I have an odd amount of negatives, my answer's going to be negative. If I have a -1 to the 202nd power, again, I can't write this out, but I know that 1 times 1 is going to give me 1. And this is an even amount of negatives. And so an even amount of negatives, I'm going to have a positive answer. So that's going to give me a +1. We already talked about some of the symbols for multiplication. Division, I want to mention, we've mentioned this already, 8 over 2 as a fraction. This is division. That's the division sign. You could also remember 8 goes in here. And if we were using the division sign, it would be 8 divided by 2. Remember our 0 over 8, 8 over 0. If you rewrote these, so keep this in mind if you're trying to answer this. 8 is under. Remember, this is when it is undefined. And so here, if we had the 0 on the outside, that's when it's going to be undefined. Or if we had the 0 at the end, that's when it would be undefined. here, this is going to stay, this would equal 0. And remember, we could check that and go 8 times 0 equals 0. Okay, let's let you do some practice. We've had a couple of short videos, and let's do some practice where we're going to combine a lot of the adding and multiplying, and then we will be on to our last section for chapter 1. Okay, let's scroll this up a little bit. Okay, so remember, we're going to write these down and then pause it, work on it, come back and check the answers, then we'll get on to our homework. Okay, so go ahead and pause it, and then I don't know if I left myself enough room to work all of it, but I will try. Go ahead and pause it and do your work, and then come back to it. And there you go. There you have it for this section 1.7. So go ahead and try the homework. I hope you did well on this. Good luck.